Hey, welcome to the Visionista podcast. I'm your host, Jessica East of Nor Marketing and PR. This podcast is for entrepreneurs where we talk about business and work-life balance. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Visionista. I am your host, Jessica East, and I am here with longtime friend Nate Eberly of Edward Jones.
Hello, Jessica. How are you?
I am just fantastic. Do you want to give everybody a quick one over what you do at Edward Jones all day?
Absolutely. So my role here at Edward Jones is as a financial advisor, and I bridge both personal as well as business financial advice and review from everything from the core of budgeting and starting, both on an individual family basis and a business practice basis, to more complex issues, succession planning and long-term assets and long-term investments for business owners and as well as their employees.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing that? I know we've been talking for a while. Like we met pre-Edward Jones days, I think.
Oh, yeah. A long time ago. So I've been in this industry, I've been about 5 years now.
Okay.
Fully licensed as an advisor since 2016, late 2016, and have moved across a few different firms. And I always say the first one was called Modern Woodmen of America, a small little fraternal outfit, really tiny, didn't have a lot of tools for my clients. So I moved over to a behemoth of Merrill Lynch, which is related to Bank of America. So it was this big bureaucratic item. Had everything that my clients needed, but it was a pain to deal with.
Yeah.
So last year during COVID, I made a switch to Edward Jones, which, to finish off the Goldilocks analogy, too small, too big, just right. And it's been great.
That's good.
A good portion of my clients from prior firms have stuck with me throughout, which is fantastic because it demonstrates the trust that they have in me, my process, my advice, and my knowledge that I'm able to share with them and help them with.
Awesome. And we talked briefly before we hit the record button. We are in Ohio. That is our physical location, but you're actually licensed to help people outside of Ohio, correct?
Absolutely. So Ohio is my home state registration, but I'm also licensed in Michigan, Indiana, I believe Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Texas, Idaho, and a handful of others, Illinois. There's a bunch in between, and it's really friends and family that have referred me out to their friends and colleagues across the states, which led me to being licensed in those areas, so that I can assist families that maybe a brother or sister, a son or daughter that may be living elsewhere without interruption in service, and still provide them the same knowledge base, the same service, the same connection, although be it maybe more virtual, but still being there for their needs on a continued basis.
Yeah. Awesome. So I will put Nate's contact information in the description in the notes section. So if what we talk about today, you have some questions or you want to reach out because you have your own like investment needs, I'll put that down there so you can reach out to Nate. If you're in one of the like 2 states he can't help you in, he has contacts so he can help you, pass you along to somebody who can help you. So, okay. Well, Nate is here because we are going to talk about money, money management and planning for the future. You know, COVID got everybody kind of all up in arms. A lot of people had cash flow problems. The people who didn't have super big cash flow problems were still worried about cash flow because there were just so many unknowns. You know, here, almost 2 years later, we're still technically in a pandemic. Even though a lot of people have had their shots, a lot of people have not had their shots, and variants and people are masking up again. And it's still, we're not done with it yet. So there's still a lot of uncertainties for businesses that deal with the public. Think about concert venues and restaurants and things like that. So there's still a lot of unknowns. So, jumping right in, I wanted to talk about money management tips, like liquid assets versus hard assets. And well, I guess, putting things away, maybe I'm jumping ahead, putting things away, I feel should be in everybody's plan. Even if it's not like a lot, you should have some kind of emergency fund, not only personally, but for your business, because you never know. I'm looking at my QuickBooks today, and there's some people that owe me money. And, that happens sometimes when you have a lot of billables out. Sometimes they sit, and that's across the board. So what would you recommend, like maybe a good rule of thumb for saving, putting things away as a business owner?
I mean, it's a great topic and great question. And it's very similar from an individual's perspective as well as a business's perspective. And so that number kind of changes, in the personal realm, it's always try to save, a minimum of a 10% of whatever your income may be, your gross income. So if you're making $60,000, you should be saving at least $600 on a monthly basis, or 6,000 total for the year, and $500 every month as a basis to put it aside for the future. And that's kind of a minimum guideline. So when it comes to a business, it's slightly different. What you want for a business is to have that basis of savings and allocate it towards specific items.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're thinking of a business planning perspective, things that come up, cash flow, that time between billables being received and getting that money into the bank so you can pay yourself, pay your vendors, pay your electric, pay your gas, and so forth. It's oftentimes better to have a solid basis of cash to utilize. So really, a young business should get in the habit of maintaining a minimum level of cash in, say, a checking account or their general business account, and maintain that to be, again, a function of whatever their revenue may be. And I would say, again, if you have a minimum of 10% of your total annual revenue in an account, you can weather those kind of extended periods of time for your bills to be received, and not go down the path necessarily of having to utilize credit, line of credit, credit cards to pay for items, because then you can go down the path of interest expense, which cuts into your profit as a business. So I would say that it would be a 10% of your total revenue for a year should be kind of a minimum that you maintain in a business account, so you can weather those storms, weather those ups and downs in billable timing, especially in environments like this. When we get into slowdowns, you might be slow on your payables, and guess what? Your clients are going to be slower on their payables because they have to wait for their income.
Yeah.
They have to wait for their turnaround, and it's just a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So being prepared is important, both on the individual side and having an emergency savings, but as well for the business.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously a checking account or savings account would be more liquid. What do you suggest for, like longer term savings? Maybe this is more for like a personal instead of the business. To put it in context, we have checking and savings for the business, and there's some money in the savings for business. We get a little interest every month. Obviously, it's like next to nothing, but in an emergency, if we needed some money for something, we do have a little bit in savings that we could pull from. Obviously, since I own my own business, I don't have a 401k or anything like that. I think I actually have, oh no, I have a Schwab account. Sorry, Edward Jones. I have a Schwab account, but like I put like $50 a month in that. I put $100 a month into an Acorns account. And that's just for me because I can get my Acorns, I get like 14% interest a year. So that's more like longer term, and I don't have access to it. Like if something broke at the house and I needed some money, it takes about a week to transfer from my Acorns back into my checking account. So it's not immediate, but it's not like a real estate investment, or like buying stock in a friend's company or something. So what would you suggest to a business owner for some of their own personal like retirement or, I'm 42. I'm not looking to retire anytime soon. Honestly, I really love what I do, so I can't envision myself retired. Like I don't know, maybe it's because of my age, but what would you recommend to someone who is thinking about future stuff? Maybe it's a vacation house or full on retirement. What should they do?
No, that's a great question. And everything comes down to an individual basis, an individual business basis. So everything that I'm really going to put forward here is kind of just generalized knowledge. Generalized item, should not be taken as an individual's advice for anybody watching, but rather kind of a guide, kind of an educational item.
Well, it's different. Everybody has different stuff they have to take care of, and everybody makes different amount of money. I still have 4 kids I have to get through college. So that's my priority in front of beachfront property.
Exactly, right. And it really starts in discussing that on whether it's an individual side or a business side. It's what are the priorities, both on the short term, medium term, and long term. And in order to craft that plan, and when I'm working with a business owner, it's okay, short term. It's that liquidity need, making sure that money is not wrapped up into investments or any hard assets they cannot liquidate easily. In order to sustain cash flow. And again, that's why it's important what we discussed a little bit ago. It's having that cash, that savings, that minimum there. Because once you get it there, depending on the industry, some industries you're able to rent equipment, say for example, different contractors. In some circumstances, it makes sense for the contractor to go out and buy their own equipment and have their own equipment because they have the cash flow, they have the ability to either finance at good rates, have the business credit and even personal credit to do so. And it makes sense to have it. In other circumstances, it makes more sense to have the money utilized for renting equipment. So it really comes down to kind of that, because you do not want to buy a lot of equipment, a lot of hard assets, decorate the office, as if you're making $1 million, but your budget is only about 250 in revenue a year. You want to be responsible with that money and those assets that you're purchasing for your business, so you're not tied up. So you do not have a lot of money wrapped up in assets now. Again, it becomes a tax question too, and there's all kinds of planning aspects to it. But that's kind of my first advice for especially younger businesses. Older businesses is a little different because they have established process, they have established credit. They're able to finance and take advantage of certain tax items a little bit easier. So the other item comes up is real estate. I work with a lot of real estate brokers, a lot of realtors, and a lot of them have the mindset of, okay, well, real estate's my retirement. I'm going to buy these houses. I'm going to rent them out. It's going to be my retirement income. And it's great. I love real estate. I've had real estate investments myself, and I've added, again, realtors. But the problem is when you need that big expense taken care of, how are you going to pay for it in retirement? Because if you sell that house, you're going to lose income ultimately. So it becomes an item where you have to have that other side, which means early on it might be hard. It might be tough to have that $100 in Acorn and Schwab and Edward Jones or whatever process that you have savings as a business. It's important to have it on the priority sheet. So you have your short term, your equipment and your business needs. You have your kind of medium term of growing and business credit and utilizing that for good items and growth. But then long term, what are you going to do after you are looking to retire. And it's easy to say, hey, I don't want to retire. I'm fine. I can do this until I'm 70, 80, 90, whatever it is. I think the same way because I love helping people. But I want to be able to have time more for myself later. And so maybe a semi-retirement. Many business owners look at that. So you have to have a way to bridge that gap. And that's where the longer term savings comes in. And there's multiple tools, multiple things that happen, but you have to have a process. And it starts with find out what your priorities are, your goals, short, medium, long term, and plot it out with an advisor.
So if someone wanted, like if someone was listening and they were like, oh, this is a good conversation. I need to have this conversation with someone, whether it's you or whether it's someone else, maybe they already have their own person. What types of, I'm thinking somebody might need a list, like with maybe their goals for 10 years, 20 years, or 5 years, like, based on their age. Because typical retirement is what, 65? Ish?
I
guess
really,
there's no
and
typical.
these days it's getting older.
Yeah.
And the pandemic had changed a lot of things where for many years, retirement had been stretched later and later. And then last year we had a phenomenon where a lot of people left the workforce earlier because they just saw it as an opportunity. They weren't ready to work from home, didn't want to do anything virtual, and they just decided, hey, I'm gonna come run. So generally that 65 is kind of the traditional number. And I tell my clients, I would love for them to have the ability, they don't necessarily have to, but have the ability to retire at 60. And the reason being is that's when the IRS says that you can start accessing your retirement funds and your IRAs and 401ks and the like. So I always say 60 is kind of like, hey, let's see what we can do at 60. Again, it's somebody's health, it's somebody's longevity in their family. Some people have a family that have lived into their 90s and even to their hundreds. So they have a long period of retirement that they have to fund. So maybe that's delaying it a little bit until maybe 70 so that they can save up enough. And other people, and I have clients in this boat as well, that have family history of, say, early onset Alzheimer's. So they're worried about how much of a quality retirement life they may have. So they leave earlier, say 60 or 62. And it's really kind of understanding that as well. That's something I deep dive with clients is that what does your family history look like? And what might that afford you for quality of life and retirement? Whether it's early onset Alzheimer's or other sickness and chronic health issues that may impact quality of life. And do we want to see how early you can get out of workforce on a full-time basis and enjoy life, and be out there? But it all starts with that. And I have specific tools that I utilize to look at multiple goals and how we finance each one and how each one will be tackled when we have income. And it's coming from a job, it's coming from our business, it's coming from investments such as real estate and others, to now you cut off some of that income in retirement. How is that cash flow going to work, and how are we going to cover everything that we need to cover? So I get granular with clients, as I said, looking at their budgets, being deep involved with finances to assure that we get as close to achieving every goal that they have as possible. And being able to enjoy as well current life and retirement. And that may also include, what do we do about that business? Is it a sellable business? Is it an item that could be sold? Some businesses aren't. Some marketing agencies and others, it's not necessarily an asset that can be sold because it really is just you. The branding, the brains behind the operation is really you. So is it a sellable asset? Does that provide you more money in retirement? Or we have to now account for that's a loss. You won't have any income there. So how do we replace it?
So it sounds like even if you don't have a clear idea of maybe what you want because you are, 30, 40, maybe even 50, and you hadn't really thought about retirement or what comes next because you're up to your eyeballs, trying to run your business and make ends meet. even if you haven't really thought it all through, it sounds like you have a lot of tools to kind of get those conversations going and help people consider what they want their life to look like at 65, 75, 85. So I guess my thing, I would encourage people not to wait to talk to Nate or someone else, and start thinking about that. And even if life is, pretty hand to mouth, if you can put $5 or $10 a month away, that's better than nothing, and then leave it. So I don't know, that's what I've always done.
Absolutely.
And then, if I have an emergency, I've
it's
got a few
smart.
$100s, but okay.
No, it's smart, because when I work with individuals, I always say, especially if it's a household where there's uneven earnings or a single household, a single parent household type thing, you want to be able to have 6 months worth of income set aside in an emergency account, because you are fully reliant on yourself and your family is fully reliant on you to take care of expenses. And should anything happen with your job, your business, or something gets in the way, a family health issue that takes you away from your job and working,
Yeah.
you need to have that money set aside, especially what we saw last year with the pandemic, and a lot of people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And though there was some extra aid by way of unemployment, a lot
It
of that
took a
was
long
delayed,
time.
and it took a while for a lot of people to get help. hmm
Yeah.
So you really need to have that savings, and you struck on an item there too, that I am always looking for resources out there to give to business owners or provide them some thoughts, especially early on, to assure that, like I said, that maybe they're building a business as opposed to creating a job. And one of the books that comes to mind is the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And this book, the E-Myth, it really speaks to business owners in terms of creating those processes around you, so that, say you need to leave, or say you need to be outside of the business, the physical location, or away for a vacation, that the business still runs. And how do you design that? And one of the thoughts and one of the stories that's kind of brought through in this book and several of his others is about the person that, a great baker, makes the best cakes, best pies in all the world, right? But when she goes to open that bakery, she's working the business constantly. She's constantly baking cakes and doing that. But you still need your books to be done. You still need to pay your bills. You still need to figure out how to clean, the bakery, and be efficient and work with your clients and have outward marketing and all of that. And if you're trying to do it all yourself, you're ultimately going to fail. So it's about finding how you work on your business as opposed to in your business, and finding those solid people around you to really create an investment, a true investment in something that, again, could be sellable versus just an income source. And
So
another
really
item
that
that,
kills,
again, kind of goes to the savings aspect.
so really that kills two birds with one stone, because it helps you, not be running around like a crazy person, because you have trusted people around you so that you can have, a normal day, like 8 to 5, 8 to 7. Like obviously business owners work way more than people who work for someone else. You could take a day off if you wanted to, because you have people around you, but also, let's go back to the cake lady. Her skill is baking amazing cakes. Maybe it's not running a register, managing the books, running a Facebook page. Once you find people who are really good at that and you're able to trust your team, I talk about this often, finding people and then trusting them, letting go and letting them do what they're good at, then the business grows, and then everybody eats. So, and actually there, we had a point, we're going to skip a little bit to get there. Talent pool. There's been a lot of talk here recently, about, well, I just can't get anybody to work. Nobody wants to show up and work anymore. I have my feelings about that, but we talked about balancing wages and benefits because it's not always about money. Like it is, people need to be able to pay their bills, but there's more to it than that. And I think the pandemic really had people reevaluating the quality of life because a lot of people lost people who were really important to them. And, there's that old saying, on your deathbed, you're not like, oh, I wish I would have worked harder. You're like, oh, I wish I would have had more time with my spouse, my kids, my grandkids, my friends, fishing on the lake, like whatever that thing was that you love that you didn't get to do very much of. So how would you respond to a business owner who, we've just talked about investing and covering your bills, and trusting your team. How do you get a good team in place that you can trust so that you can continue to pour into your business and make it something that is sellable, that is worth something that someone else would come along and buy in, your death or your retirement? Like, not to be morbid, if I get, hit by a bus today, which is, if you're in Dayton and those RTAs, they will run you over and they won't even look back.
They got their route. They got their timing. They got to be at the corner by 5.
Move. Yes. So that's a likelihood for me. But tomorrow I have people in place. I have a team in place, but the business would be sold. There is some value to it. So, how would you respond to someone who's thinking about those things?
No, it's a great discussion to have because last year presented and this year is presenting a lot of labor issues, and it stems from a lot of different things. One, a lot of people left the labor pool early, like I said earlier. We also had a limit on immigration, because we shut down borders and other people shut down theirs as well, so nobody could come and go, and that limited new employees on a natural basis, both of those. So with that, businesses are competing for a smaller group of people. And what it comes down to is one, a quality of life issue, as people see that as important, especially last year when not only did we lose a lot of loved ones, and I lost 4 clients and a client lost also a loved one. It was how they lost them, and lost them without being near them.
Yeah.
Without being able to see them and talk to them one last time before their passing. So a lot of that became a concern and it's on top of mind. So just like when you're, again, go back to that contractor item that I spoke to earlier, and you're ready to buy equipment. Well, it's a careful consideration of what type of investment you're going to make. You want the high quality equipment for the right price. And sometimes it's a balance. But ultimately, the better investment you have, maybe longer term, the equipment's going to last longer. It's going to be easier to maintain, and thus you're not having to reinvest on a regular basis. And the same goes for employees. Mm-hmm. Training is one of the most expensive aspects of any business because it requires somebody to be taken away from their regular position to train a new person, and that person's getting paid even though they're not working truly in their position yet. So higher turnover leads to higher cost. You want to be able to invest in an employee, invest in them, not necessarily just with right wages, but right benefits and the balance of both to retain your top talent, to have them believe in your vision, believe in your business long term so that they stay and they enjoy the life. And it comes simply as what benefits do you have available to them? Do you have savings available? What type of health benefits are available to them? What costs are you going to spread to them versus you handling on your own on the business side? And they are very, very tough decisions to go through, especially as a small business, because when cash flow is tight, there's a propensity to think, well, we're going to cut this off, or we're going to eliminate wage increases, or we're going to do A, B, C, or D in order to save and preserve cash. And it's the first thing, and it's a natural instinct. There's nothing wrong with a small business owner thinking that because it is a livelihood. But when it comes down to coming out of that rough water, the rough time, do you still have the trusted people around you to grow again? Do you have those people retained that they believe in you so much they're going to stay? And sometimes it does come down to dollars and cents and
Yeah.
how much you're paying. And there's a great story up here in Northwest Ohio of a restaurant chain. And my wife actually went to school with the chef that's involved with this venture. And I've been able to meet both of the gentlemen, both of the owners. And it's Balance Pan Asian Grill. And they have several locations up here in Northwest Ohio. And what they are doing is they just announced, I was trying to find the post on Facebook because they were fully transparent. And they said, starting August, one of their menu items was going to increase by $1. Some would increase by 50 cents. Some other things would retain the same price. And it was because of two reasons. One, there was some increased cost out there. But two, they do have a aggressive structure to what they say is reward our full-time employees, adding standard paid time off. Amazing type of thing that doesn't really exist in the restaurant arena. And also giving them additional benefits and additional savings. And their hourly compensation actually has gone up to $23.50 an hour for the management, assistant managers, and the like. So they're being aggressive with their pay because they see the value of having those people that are going to be around now and in the future to make sure that they have a business success. So it's a budget item. It's a dollar and cents item. But having an accountant, having an advisor, somebody that could look over the books with you and really analyze your business to see what is truly possible and be objective about it is important so that you can get those solid employees on your side and you can retain them long term.
As a consumer, I wouldn't mind paying a quarter or 50 cents more for a cheeseburger or a salad or whatever, if that meant that people then had a living wage. I think, we all complain, and I like a good coupon. I'm not even going to lie. Give me all the coupon codes. Half the stuff in my office is stuff I went junking for and then rehabbed it, to make it nice. But that's also partially because I like having things that just I have, and it's not, you can't just go buy it. So I like old stuff. But, I think there comes a point in time where people need to make living wages, and, not everybody can and should be on food stamps when they have a full-time job that's just not paying them. And I don't think it's fair to expect people to work like 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. Why not just give them one job where, people are making a lot? Maybe not a lot, but at least enough to cover their bills. And the cost of living in Ohio is pretty, I don't want to say it's cheap, but it's definitely on the low end, nationally. So we're not talking like New York or LA rates or Chicago or anything. But, I've never understood that personally. My team, we've got 15 members for the team at Noir now. And my team tells me what their rate is. And everybody's at a contractor status right now. And I have never had a problem keeping talent ever. So I actually have more people that want to work with us than what I have jobs coming in to keep like everybody fed and happy. So, obviously people who are on the higher end, and I have some people are like, oh, I'm $100 an hour. Okay, thanks. I don't know that we can use you for much of anything, but I'll keep you in mind, so some of it, I think people have to be cognizant of, resale value, because I've got bills to pay too. I'm in my office, you see all this behind me. I've got lights on and, but the people I have who give me reasonable, rates. Okay. Name your price. Tell me how many hours it's going to take to do this gig. All right. We quote that to the client. They say yes or no. And then we get moving. And I have people, January will be 10 years in business for us. And one of the first people, thank you.
Yes,
One of the first people I brought on is still with me as a contractor. He's actually working on a couple websites right now. So, and we haven't suffered. And so I say that to say it's possible. If you treat your people well, they will treat you well. Your clients will be happy. You build longevity, with people. And, the more you become comfortable with people, there's just more of an ease of working together, I guess. No matter what industry you're in, you kind of know what to expect from people. And I would encourage people to think about that. I definitely have the unpopular opinion. I see posts all the time. Nobody wants to work anymore. And my first question is, well, how much are you paying them, Ethel? Like how much? I have seen posts. I've got 2 people who are in the marketing field, and they're looking for like full-time with benefits marketing jobs. And so I've been helping them and introducing them to people around here. And I'm not even kidding. I see posts where people want a marketing like director, manager, 15 years of experience, master's degree preferred, $15 an hour.
Yeah. Which,
and you wonder why no one wants to work.
Exactly. And again, we could kind of speak to Ohio being an inexpensive place to live versus other places. Mm-hmm. But $15
that should be like $40 or $50
an hour. Education and I mean, this person that's looking for this job is invested heavily in their education, heavily in their business, in their craft, and have become strong. And to be told, you're going to $15 an hour, which is, again, thinking about the cooks at Balance. I mean, that's what the cooks at Balance are doing. And most of those are low skilled labor. So, they might not have a culinary degree and have learned to cook as a function of their job. So you're kind of equating it to somebody with limited skill and paying them as if they have limited skill, but you want them to have the highest skill.
Yes.
It's not going to work. And again, that goes to planning. And I think of it actively on a budgetary side, where I've worked with some businesses that are, pretty high in revenue side, millions of dollars in annual revenue. And when we do a budget and we do an analysis and we're looking at their payroll structure and their payroll costing, and looking at what positions they need to fill, which are essential in their business that need to be there, and what type of pay grade is there, and how does it compare to the market? How does that compare to other businesses? Because if you want that top talent, you're gonna have to pay for that top talent. Mm-hmm. Now, again, you can have maybe a little bit slow, a little bit lower, basis. Maybe instead of 65,000, maybe you can pull them in for 55. But you gotta have to make up that $10,000 gap in some type of value. Mm-hmm. What type of hours can they work? Do they have flex scheduling? Mm-hmm. If it's an office position, do they have the ability to do telework and work from home? Pandemic or not. Mm-hmm. Do they have that flexibility? Because maybe they have young kids and they want to be able to navigate that during the summer easier.
Mm-hmm. Not even that. Things, right? If you are going to pay a little less, but you have flex time, maybe the person only has to be in the office twice a week, then that's 3 days. They don't have to pay for gas, wear and tear on their car, parking, lunch at the office, whatever. So there are other savings that they might have by being able to stay at home. Yeah. So, it's a really good conversation to have. And I think people globally are finally ready to have that conversation. Forcing people to work at home, forced people to rethink and accept, well, this computer thing isn't so shabby. Like I can totally do my whole job now. Which stinks because now when I go to Kroger at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon, everybody else is there. It's like freaking Saturday. I'm like, why are these people not at work? Oh, that's right. Everybody works from home now. So I don't like big crowds. I have a problem with big crowds. Even before germs was a thing, I just get claustrophobic. So I liked to go to the store 2:00 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. Now it doesn't matter because everybody's like taking a late lunch to go. I'm like, ugh. So I do miss that part, but it works out better for everybody. Work is still getting done and, people are saving costs. There's a group here in Dayton that had a pretty big campus. crap, I'm trying to remember who they were. They were in Kettering because Kettering had like a total aneurysm when they decided they were going to leave. But it was a call center banking type business. And, they were obviously able to work from home. The pandemic forced them to work from home. And so the parent company is like, light bulb, like, why are we paying for 5,000, 15,000 square feet in this city where we have taxes and mortgage and electric and all this other stuff if everybody can just stay at home? So they gave everybody like a $400 or $500 stipend for their home office setup, and they sold their real estate. So obviously the city had a conniption fit because that's a lot of lost tax dollars. So there are some governments that are now like, oh, wait a minute, how are we going to get this tax money back? We're missing revenue here. I'm sure they'll figure it out at some point. It's the government. But a lot of businesses kind of had that light bulb moment, and they're like, wait a minute, we are saving so much in overhead by having people work from home. This is great. It doesn't work for everybody. I still have my office. Just because my husband also works from home. He's a loud talker, and he takes every phone call on speakerphone so that the phone and he can scream at each other. We have hardwood floors, so there's no way I can actually work at home when he's working. And this is just like my own kind of sacred space, plants and crystals and people come in and out. And it's nice. Even if I'm the only person here, I enjoy it. It works for me. But a lot of corporate people were like, wait,
Oh
like, we
yeah,
don't
I
have to
mean,
do that
and
now.
you got to think there's been a lot of situations where people have evaluated use of space, and that's been going on for a long time. I mean, the theory of just-in-time inventories and limiting storage space as a way to eliminate some of those high fixed costs has been around.
Mhm.
But last year, again, when there was a cash crunch, when there's a slowdown, and this happens often at that part of economic cycles, people start to try to innovate and find new ways to survive on less or develop a new process.
Mhm.
And right now, we're in the middle of that. We've had a lot of companies that have designed new processes, have figured out that productivity may or may not have changed when people were working at home. So they opened up that ability. And we're seeing some bigger companies that have been trying to bring people back to the office now, and they're larger companies, larger revenue. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, those big bank companies, right? They're bringing people back into New York and driving them back in, but they've got kind of a relationship with the city and developers and such, and they know by driving those people back, bringing those people back to the office, that they're driving commerce in downtown. That people are now going back out to the restaurants and are back on transportation and doing the like. So that way they're constantly there. And so with that, they just figured it's worth it to have those people in, and they're going to pay them.
I mean, it's kind of a delicate ecosystem, honestly, with all the other people that it supports. It's funny you say that. We had a lot of auto industry here in Dayton. General Motors had a plant here in Moraine for a really, really long time, which is a suburb of Dayton, and Vandalia too, which is just north of Dayton by the Dayton International Airport. When those closed, they shipped them to Mexico or whatever, those jobs. It wasn't just all the people that worked there that were out of work. It was all the little suppliers who made like brake pads or something. And then the restaurants that were immediately surrounding them, barber shops, guys would go in for a haircut in and out. So, each business, especially if it's very big and employs hundreds or thousands of people, kind of creates its own little microsystem around that physical location. And that's kind of old school, where people would do that. But that's something that, I think people should consider. How can we move that into this new era of online business? It may not be viable as it existed 20 years ago, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be viable now. We just kind of have to rethink it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like anything. I mean, time requires, innovation because technology changes, consumers change, behaviors change, families change. So we're constantly trying to find different ways, and both business side, individual communities, governments have to be flexible and have to be more nimble to get around than ever before because of the speed of business, the speed of life.
And you just said a crazy phrase right there, government nimble.
I know. And
let's all do a shot for that one.
Oh my gosh. And that's a completely different podcast. But yeah.
Oh God, I haven't had enough cocktail for that one yet. All right. So the last thing I wanted to cover, we kind of skipped ahead because we went so well into talking about the talent pool. Acquiring and building business credit. It's an important thing to have. So I wanted to talk about like best practices, when you should do that, how you should do that. As a woman-owned business, and this is like across the board, women-owned businesses do not necessarily take advantage of business credit like our male-owned business counterparts. My husband runs his business very differently than I run mine. If I don't have cash to pay people, if I don't have cash to buy something, I wait until I have the cash. He uses credit to leverage what he wants to do. And we talk about it, and he's like, well, yeah, of course I do that. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't want to have, stuff hanging over my head. So, and also a cautionary tale before you tell me what I just asked you. A printer that I used to have many years ago took out a business loan to pay their people when print first started kind of tanking, and everything started going digital. People were doing less printing. Like, they're still printing, but not as much as we did in 1987. And so they took out quite a sizable loan so that they didn't have to lay off their people, which, I understood where their heart was. I'm like, oh, that's really great. But business did not come back enough for them to pay, like, to make the payments on their loan. They ended up going out of business really because the loan they took out, like, it wasn't a good move for them at the end of the day, because they were paying people costs instead of like, oh, I just bought a new piece of equipment that's going to help me run my business. So knowing that, I have been overly cautious not to take out any money. And I know that's like a very specific, situation, but what would you say about business credit, when to go get it, how to do it correctly so that you don't, end up shooting yourself in the foot?
No, I mean, it's a great topic. It's an important topic. And there's a lot to say about the psychology of money and how it varies between genders. And it varies
I don't like
between
money.
genders, geographic, cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, a lot. And that's a big part of my job, is actually kind of navigating a lot of that. Because often when I'm working with a couple, whether it's individual or they jointly own a business, it's trying to navigate both mindsets. And understand how to balance them. And there's a propensity for a lot of people that get into business to automatically think, how am I going to get a line of credit, or how am I going to finance this? Or it's like their first thought is to jump into debt in order to do it. Now, there's something important to say. Look, there is good leverage and there is bad debt. Bad debt is anything that's not secured, essentially. Okay, so if it's not something that can be secured, it's bad debt. Credit cards often are bad debt. It's used to buy items that depreciate or are used and consumed immediately. And thus, people end up having balances. Both individuals and businesses have balances on credit cards or lines of credit for things that are gone. And they're constantly paying that off, and now they've got interest costs on top of that. And during downturns, or even during normal times, depending on the business, with small margins, that can eat into your pay. That can eat into your savings ability, into your ability to have more money dedicated towards your human capital and investment for those solid employees. So I'm always cautionary when it comes to debt and leverage. However, sometimes it's a necessary evil. Good leverage is things that provide you financing for tools that are going to last, outlast the term of however long it takes to pay for it. So if you're buying something
Such
on a
as?
5-year note, it better last 10 years. So you can actually make a full return and make up for any interest cost that is associated with it. Those things are important part of the discussion.
So like a tool to run the business, if it was a machine or a vehicle or something like that.
Exactly. And as I said earlier, it becomes a function of analysis of, is it something that can be rented? Maybe pay a slightly higher cost to rent it in the near term, something that's used on a project to project basis, maybe not used enough to fully get a return on it. Or are you a part of your growth cycle as a business that now you could take on that financing and you need that piece, that equipment, that office, whatever it may be, to afford that extra bit. So it's all a function of analysis of what's really needed there. But when it comes to small business, credit is built originally around your personal credit. And it doesn't matter what your revenue may be as a young business, especially, thinking up to 5 years, your revenue could be killer. They're still going to pull a personal financial credit file on you. Unlike personal files, businesses don't have necessarily a credit report that's used in the same way. People reference Duns and D&B. Bradstreet. So people reference that because it does provide a business score. But what that does, and that's a function of more, if you've done something wrong, it's reported. If you've done everything right, it's not necessarily reported.
And that's very different than your personal credit score because, obviously a personal credit score, the more payments you make, the more available credit you have, the longer you've had a credit score, your score goes up. But the Duns and Bradstreet, like right now, my business doesn't even show up there. Because we pay our bills. So,
exactly. So if you don't have anybody
it's very opposite.
If you don't have anybody that's trying to collect on you as a business, you're not going to have any reporting because commercial loans, business loans are not required by regulation to be reported. So part of banking regulations, it's not an item that's reported. So similarly, if you have, say, a commercial note for real estate, it's not going to show on your personal credit report. So, it's not something that is going to be there as a positive. Now, if you stop paying and something happens collective-wise, well, your signature guarantee on that loan, and it will pop up on your personal report. So it's important to start with yourself.
That's just bananas to me. So how do you're laughing, but like I'm legit. So how do I, as a business owner, not that I want like credit or debt or anything, but how do I, as a business owner, build credit for the future? My 15-year-old is a month away, actually like 2 weeks away from getting her temps. She is working towards saving for a car, can't wait to have a car. So, she's trying to get everything ready to buy a car. Adults, if you want to buy a house, you start paying things off. You don't buy anything big because you want to get the best rate you can for a house. I don't need anything right now, but I mean, in a year I might. How do I, as a business, build credit if I only get the report if I do something bad? That's always been my conundrum. I don't know.
It's a conundrum that small businesses don't fully understand. And again, it all starts with you personally. As a small business, unlike a larger business that has large asset base, a lot of equipment or other items that could be collateralized. Small businesses generally do not have a lot of that could be collateralized. So you're a high risk when it
Mhm.
comes to a bank. A bank looks at it like, okay, well, if we give you this $50,000 and okay, your business starts faltering or goes out of business, okay, how are we going to get that back? So it starts with you personally. What is your
Mhm.
personal credit like? Um, if you have a good profile, a score of 740 and above, and you strive to pay everything on time, you limit your debt use to less than 20% of available credit. You don't take out new things. Um, you don't take out new loans on a continued basis. You don't try to pull credit on a continued basis. Those little things will help you because the bank has to rely on the trustworthiness, the character of
Mhm.
you because you are your business. And as a business grows, it kind of transitions.
Mhm.
But when it comes to needed credit, there are programs out there, and commercial bankers can assist even further
Mhm.
with it too. And I can speak to people about it because of my knowledge. But the Small Business Administration, there are
Mhm.
certain loans that are out there that um, can be, what they call either micro or smaller items, smaller needs, lines of credit, things like that, that can be used to kind of establish a banking relationship. Okay,
Mhm.
so with businesses, you're not building credit, you're kind of building relationship and credibility. And that's where it starts. So when you need, as that business grows, and you need to tap credit, leverage, good
Mhm.
leverage, you have a working relationship with a banker that has seen a demonstrated ability to utilize credit
Mhm.
wisely as a business and you personally,
Mhm.
and knows how that business will succeed with that financing, that good leverage. Uh, but if you're bad with debt and you take out bad debt and you keep balances high, you're going to get the opposite.
Yeah.
Bankers are going to be scared because they know that their money is at risk. And actually, that's other people's money. If you think
Mhm.
about it, that's all the deposits that bank has. It's our money that we're lending out to people.
Mhm.
It becomes a scary proposition. So it all starts with you personally as a small business owner to do right by your personal credit and then work to build credible relationships with bankers so that they know your business, they know how it functions, they've seen the proven success, and they see and believe in the vision as well.
Mhm.
And that's how a business credit is really built.
Mhm. So it sounds like you would recommend having like a personal banker somewhere, whether it's like a large national bank, maybe you have a person at a branch, or like a smaller local bank. I also want to mention Key Bank for Women. They have a special program just for women owned businesses. So I'll put the link there. They have a lot of learning and informational links, as well as private bankers. So if you are a lady who has a business and you're having some questions, I'll put that there. But
No, that's a great point too, because I know KeyBank does have that, and I once worked with KeyBank, and there are other resources out there for women-owned businesses that can
Mhm.
for credit, for banking, for financial knowledge and information.
Mhm.
And it's important to know where those resources are. So that's great that you're going to put that out there because it will help at least provide some guidance.
Mhm.
And oftentimes I say there's two ways to go banking. You either go large or you go local.
Mhm.
The mid-tier ones are okay. They're in between growth. They want to be
Mhm.
big, but they're not big enough, and they're
Yeah.
too big, and they're no longer personable. But the bigger banks have the ability to utilize quick access to SBA loans
Mhm.
and are able to kind of utilize credit differently than local banks. But
Mhm.
local banks will provide more resources and knowledge base and connection to the community. And it's good to have that relationship as well for even just networking purposes. And again, building credibility so that you
Mhm.
can build that credit.
Mhm. So, maybe that should be your first step if you're listening and you're kind of like, "Ooh, my computers are getting old. I may need to replace those next year." Or, I have this work truck and the brakes are going out and the transmission's a little hinky. I'm going to have to replace that this next year. Maybe that would be a good first step, contacting a banker. If you're a woman owned business, going to the Key Bank for Women, I'll put that link there, and just finding out, okay, what do I need to do to be prepared to finance this thing or these things that I'm going to need. I am a plan for the worst and hope for the best kind of person. I don't want to be surprised by things at the very last minute. If I can plan for it, I like that better. So it sounds like that would be a good solid first step. If you think you might need something, obviously if you need something now, that's very different than, planning for something in the next 12 to 24 months. But really preparing your personal credit, it sounds like, is the best way to go to get those things that you need for your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I fully agree with that.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we have covered all the points that I know I wanted to chat about today. Do you have anything else that you think is important, Nate, that a business owner should know about managing their money and planning for their financial future?
Yeah. I mean, the one point that I try to tell people, and I ask this of all my clients, is I ask, who is their attorney? Who is their CPA? Who is their property and casualty insurance agent? Who is their banker? Develop that team around you in that realm to be your board of advisors, and have them know each other. Have them talk to each other, because the more that they do that, the more they'll be able to really have synchrony when it comes to helping you and being a solid guide for you.
Mm-hmm.
So be open. Let your other board of advisors know who each other are. In fact, encourage them to talk to each other so that they can do the most help and most positive for you and help you work on your business as opposed to in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the main item I try to lead with any business owner client that I have, is have that board of advisors work on your business, not in your business, and never be afraid to ask questions. We are always here to help and always here to be a guide. It's what we do. It's what we love. I love my career when it comes to financial services and resource and investments and long-term savings. I love that. And I want to help anybody. And I encourage questions. I encourage conversations. Even if I can't help you with something,
Mm-hmm.
at least maybe I could be a guide and a
Mhm.
resource.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Nate, for chatting today. I will put Nate's contact information down there along with Key Bank for Women, SBA, the eMyth Revisited. This has been the Visionista.
Thank you so much, Jessica.